In the heart of Los Angeles, where dreams often collide with reality, a story of compassion and unexpected connections was about to unfold. Comment where you're watching from today as we share this remarkable tale of how one chance encounter changed two lives forever. On a sunny afternoon in Beverly Hills, the sidewalks sparkled with the usual parade of luxury and privilege. Among the well-heeled shoppers and tourists, Michael Turner sat quietly on a worn wooden stool, his weathered hands working methodically on a canvas. His paintings, arranged carefully on the sidewalk, told stories of city life through vibrant colors and bold strokes, each one a window into his unique perspective of the world. Despite his undeniable talent, most passers-by barely spared a glance at his work. Sophia Anderson, a local gallery owner, had earlier that day dismissed his attempts to show his portfolio with a practiced wave of her hand. "We don't accept submissions from street artists," she had said, her voice dripping with condescension. But Michael remained undeterred, his brush continuing to dance across the canvas as he worked on his latest piece, a stunning cityscape that captured both the glamour and grit of Los Angeles. The day had been particularly challenging. Emma Roberts, a boutique owner, had called security when Michael's easel had accidentally brushed against her store's window display. "We can't have people like him driving away our customers," she had declared loudly, making sure everyone within earshot could hear her disapproval. But fate had other plans that day. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the palm-lined streets, a familiar figure caught sight of Michael's work. Natalie Portman, known not just for her acting prowess, but for her genuine interest in the arts, stopped in her tracks. Her eyes were drawn to a particular painting, a haunting portrait of a young girl holding a wilted flower, the city's chaos swirling behind her. The actress approached quietly, taking in the details of each piece. Michael, absorbed in his work, didn't immediately notice her presence. It wasn't until she spoke that he looked up, his eyes meeting hers with a mixture of surprise and dignity. "These are extraordinary," Natalie said, her voice genuine and warm. "The way you capture emotion through color. It's remarkable." Around them, the scene began to shift. Charlotte Green, who had earlier hurried past with her shopping bags, now slowed her pace, curiosity getting the better of her. William Hall, a business executive who had dismissed Michael's presence as an eyesore, found himself drawn into the growing crowd, but not everyone was moved by the celebrity's interest. Isabella Clarke, a social media influencer, rolled her eyes as she filmed the scene. "Oh, please," she muttered to her followers. "She's probably just doing this for publicity. Nobody actually buys art from the street." Natalie, however, remained focused on the artwork. She asked Michael about his techniques, his inspiration, and the stories behind each piece. As he spoke, his quiet dignity and profound understanding of his craft became evident to all who listened. "This one," Michael explained, pointing to the cityscape he was working on, "is about the contrast between what we show the world and what lies beneath. Every building, every street corner has its own story, its own truth." The actress nodded, understanding perfectly what he meant. She had seen both sides of Los Angeles, the glamour and the struggle. Without hesitation, she selected 3 paintings, including the portrait that had initially caught her eye. But Natalie didn't stop there. She took out her phone and began taking pictures of the remaining artwork, asking Michael if she could share, and them with her followers. "Art like this deserves to be seen," she said firmly. "The world needs to see your perspective." As word spread of Natalie's presence and her interest in the street artist's work, the crowd grew larger. James Mitchell, a local art student, began asking Michael about his color choices and technique. Olivia Baker, who worked at a nearby coffee shop, brought him a hot drink and listened intently as he explained his creative process. The energy on the street had transformed. The same people who had ignored or dismissed Michael earlier now saw him through new eyes. But what made the scene truly remarkable was not just the celebrity's presence, it was the genuine connection being formed between two artists who saw the world in similar ways. Harper Nelson, a journalist who happened to be passing by, captured the moment on her camera. She would later write that it wasn't just about a famous actress buying art from a homeless man. It was about recognizing talent and humanity where others had chosen to see neither. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the scene, more people stopped to look at Michael's work. Some bought pieces, others simply wanted to talk about his art. Benjamin Phillips, an art collector who had walked past Michael's spot countless times before, now studied each painting with genuine interest. Natalie's simple act of stopping and truly seeing Michael's talent had created a ripple effect. Lucas Young, a local business owner, offered to display some of Michael's work in his coffee shop window. Emma Scott, a teacher, asked if he would be willing to speak to her art class about his techniques, but perhaps the most telling transformation was in the way people now looked at Michael himself. The invisible barrier that had separated him from the bustling life of Beverly Hills seemed to dissolve. He was no longer just a homeless artist. He was an artist, period. As Natalie prepared to leave with her purchases, she turned to Michael one last time. "Your art speaks to the soul of this city," she said. "Never stop creating." Her words, spoken with genuine admiration, carried weight, not just because of who she was, but because they acknowledged a truth that had been there all along. The story could have ended there, a beautiful moment of connection between two artists from different worlds. But this was just the beginning. The impact of that chance encounter would continue to ripple outward, touching lives in ways no one could have predicted. In the days that followed, Michael's spot on the sidewalk would become a different kind of place. No longer just a space where a homeless artist displayed his work, but a reminder that talent, dignity, and humanity can be found in the most unexpected places. The morning after Natalie Portman's visit, Michael Turner's corner of Beverly Hills felt different. The energy had shifted, but not everyone was convinced this change would last. As the city stirred to life, the story of the homeless artist and the Hollywood star had already begun spreading through social media and local news. Alexander Mitchell, a local news reporter, arrived early that morning, hoping to capture the story that was creating buzz across Los Angeles. He found Michael in his usual spot, already working on a new piece. This one featuring a sunrise over the city's skyline, the colors reflecting both hope and uncertainty. The morning crowd was different now. Instead of hurried steps and averted gazes, people slowed down to look. Evelyn Carter, who worked at the nearby bank, stopped to buy a small watercolor she'd been admiring for weeks, but had never had the courage to approach about. "I should have done this sooner," she admitted, her cheeks flushing with shame at her previous hesitation. But not everyone was celebrating Michael's sudden recognition. Isabella Roberts, the owner of an upscale art gallery just 2 blocks away, watched the growing crowd with obvious disdain. "This is ridiculous," she muttered to her assistant Ava Anderson. "One celebrity buys a few paintings and suddenly everyone thinks they've discovered the next Van Gogh." What Isabella didn't know was that Natalie's influence extended far beyond mere celebrity endorsement. The actress had spent the evening sharing Michael's story and artwork on her social media platforms, catching the attention of serious art collectors and critics. Henry Green, a respected art curator, found himself intrigued by the raw emotion captured in the photographs of Michael's work. As the morning progressed, the sidewalk around Michael's spot became a hub of activity. Charlotte Nelson, a local art teacher, brought her entire class to observe and sketch. "This is real art," she told her students, "born from life's experiences, not just textbook techniques." The transformation wasn't just about art sales. Noah Phillips, who owned the coffee shop across the street, set up a small table near Michael with free coffee and pastries for those who came to view the artwork. It's about building community, he explained to anyone who asked. Art brings people together. But Michael remained humble amid the growing attention. When Sophia Wright, a fashion magazine editor, asked about his sudden rise to fame, he simply smiled and said, "I'm the same person I was yesterday. My art hasn't changed, only the way people see it has." The truth of his words resonated deeply. Lucas Clark, a businessman who had walked past Michael's spot every day for months, finally stopped to really look at the paintings. "I was blind," he admitted, purchasing a piece that depicted the very street corner he had ignored for so long. By midday, something extraordinary began to unfold. Emma Mitchell, a social worker who had been trying to help homeless artists find housing and opportunities, arrived with exciting news. Several property owners, inspired by Natalie's gesture and Michael's talent, had reached out offering temporary studio spaces for homeless artists. "This isn't just about one artist anymore," Emma explained to the growing crowd. "It's about recognizing the humanity and talent that exists on our streets." The impact continued to spread. William Anderson, who owned a small gallery in the arts district, drove across town to meet Michael personally. He wasn't interested in capitalizing on the publicity. He genuinely wanted to understand the artist behind the work that had captured so many hearts. But perhaps the most touching moment came when Harper Baker, a 12-year-old aspiring artist, approached Michael with her sketchbook. Her mother, Olivia Baker, watched with tears in her eyes as Michael took time to look through the young girl's drawings, offering gentle encouragement and advice. "Never let anyone tell you your art isn't good enough," he told Harper, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "Every artist's journey is different." As the afternoon wore on, James Turner, a documentary filmmaker no relation to Michael, began capturing footage of the scene. He was struck by how the dynamics of the street had changed. The same people who had once treated Michael as invisible now engaged with him as equals, asking about his techniques, his inspiration, and his story. Liam Roberts, a local business owner, approached Michael with an unusual proposal. He wanted to commission a series of paintings for his office building's lobby. "Not because of the publicity," he insisted, "but because your work speaks to the soul of this city in a way I've never seen before." The day wasn't without its challenges. Some passers-by still muttered about enabling homelessness or publicity stunts. Mia Sanchez, a longtime resident, voiced her concerns about the crowd disrupting the neighborhood's usual flow. But even these negative reactions couldn't diminish the powerful transformation taking place. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across Michael's canvas, Benjamin Hall, an art history professor from UCLA, stood observing the scene. "What we're witnessing," he told his colleague, "is more than just a story about art. It's about how society chooses who to see and who to ignore." The professor's words carried a profound truth. Through Natalie Portman's simple act of recognition, a spotlight had been shown not just on one artist's talent, but on the larger issue of how society treats its most vulnerable members. Isabella, young, a social media influencer who had initially mocked the situation, found herself moved by the genuine connections she witnessed throughout the day. She deleted her earlier cynical posts and instead shared a thoughtful reflection about prejudice and preconceptions. As the day drew to a close, Michael began carefully packing up his remaining paintings, fewer now than ever before, thanks to the steady stream of buyers. But he seemed less interested in the sales than in the conversations he'd had, the connections he'd made, and the hope that had begun to take root. Amelia Green, a local journalist, stayed until the end, documenting the day's events. She noticed how Michael treated everyone the same, whether they bought his most expensive piece or simply stopped to look. His dignity and genuine appreciation for each interaction spoke volumes about his character. The sun was setting when Evelyn Scott, an elderly woman who lived nearby, brought Michael a warm dinner. "I've watched you painting here for months," she confessed. "I should have done this sooner. We all should have." As the streetlights flickered on, Michael's corner had become more than just a spot where a homeless artist sold his work. It had transformed into a symbol of change, a reminder of the talent and humanity that exist in the margins of society, waiting to be recognized. The day's events had sparked something larger than anyone could have predicted. Local art communities were already organizing initiatives to support homeless artists. Social media was ablaze with discussions about art, privilege, and social responsibility. But most importantly, people were beginning to look at their city and each other with new eyes. As Michael packed up the last of his supplies, he paused to add a final stroke to his latest painting, the cityscape he'd been working on all day. In it, the city's buildings seemed to lean toward each other, connected by threads of light, suggesting that even in a city of millions, no one is truly alone. As dawn broke over Los Angeles the following day, no one could have predicted how Michael Turner's story would evolve. The local news crews had arrived before sunrise, their vans lining the street where just days ago a homeless artist had sat virtually invisible to passers-by. Sophia Anderson, who had dismissed Michael's portfolio just 2 days earlier, watched from her gallery window as the crowd began to gather. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing since Natalie Portman's social media posts had gone viral. Art collectors were suddenly demanding to know more about the street artist she had turned away, but the real story was unfolding away from the cameras. In a quiet moment before the crowd arrived, Charlotte Mitchell, a veteran art therapist, found Michael working on a new piece. This painting was different. It showed hands reaching through darkness toward a distant light. "This is about all of us," Michael explained softly, "about how we're all just reaching for connection." The morning brought unexpected visitors. William Carter, a representative from the city's Arts Council, arrived with a proposal. The council wanted to launch a new initiative supporting homeless artists, inspired by Michael's story. "Your talent opened their eyes," William explained, "but your dignity opened their hearts." Henry Hall, a wealthy tech entrepreneur, had driven across town after seeing Michael's work online. But he wasn't there to buy art. "I have an empty building in the arts district," he told Michael. "I want to turn it into a gallery and studio space for artists who need a place to create. Would you help me make it happen?" The offers of help and support were overwhelming, but Michael remained grounded. When Emma Phillips, a morning show host, asked how fame had changed him, he smiled and said, "I'm still the same person who sees beauty in broken things. The only difference is now others are beginning to see it too." Lucas Anderson, a homeless veteran who often shared Michael's corner, watched the transformation with mixed emotions. Michael never forgot where he came from, Lucas told a documentary crew. Even now, he makes sure to share whatever comes his way. The truth of Lucas's words became evident as the day progressed. Michael had begun teaching impromptu art classes to other homeless individuals, sharing not just his techniques, but his message of hope. Isabella Nelson, a social worker, observed these sessions with tears in her eyes. "He's not just teaching art," she noted. "He's teaching dignity, but not all the attention was positive." James Roberts, a local business owner, complained about the crowds disrupting his store. "This whole thing has gotten out of hand," he grumbled. "What happens when the cameras leave and we're left with more homeless people thinking they can set up shop here?" Natalie Portman, hearing about both the support and backlash, made an unexpected return visit. This time, she brought Alexander Green, a prominent gallery owner known for launching emerging artists. "Talent deserves recognition," Natalie stated firmly, regardless of where it comes from. The interaction between Alexander and Michael was profound. As they discussed art theory and technique, it became clear that Michael's lack of formal training had allowed him to develop a unique style unbound by conventional rules. "Your perspective is fresh," Alexander admitted. "You see things others miss." Meanwhile, Olivia Turner, a local high school art teacher, had brought her students to witness the phenomenon. "This isn't just about art," she told them. "It's about looking past our prejudices to see the humanity in everyone." The students were particularly moved by one of Michael's new paintings, a triptych showing the same street corner from 3 perspectives: how society saw it, how he saw it, and how it could be. Harper Mitchell, one of the students, later wrote in her essay, "Art isn't just about beauty, it's about truth." As the day progressed, something remarkable began to happen. Other homeless artists, encouraged by Michael's success, began sharing their work. Benjamin Scott, who created intricate sculptures from discarded materials, set up nearby. Mia Clark, whose poetry had gone unheard for years, finally found an audience. Noah Young, a community organizer, recognized the potential for lasting change. He began coordinating with local businesses and artists to create a sustainable support system. "This can't just be a feel-good story that fades away," he insisted. "It needs to become a movement." The impact continued to ripple outward. Liam Hall, a real estate developer, approached Michael with an innovative proposal. He wanted to convert one of his buildings into affordable housing for artists, with studio spaces and a gallery on the ground floor. "Your story made me realize I could do more with my resources," he explained. Amelia Roberts, a documentary filmmaker, had been capturing these moments of transformation. "What's fascinating," she observed, "is how one act of kindness has sparked a complete shift in how people view homelessness and art." By late afternoon, Michael's Corner had become a hub of creativity and connection. Evelyn Baker, who owned the cafe across the street, had set up a free coffee station for artists and visitors. "We're all part of this community," she said. "It's time we started acting like it." Even some of the initial skeptics had begun to change their minds. Isabella Clarke, who had criticized the attention on social media, found herself moved by the genuine change she witnessed. "I was wrong," she admitted. In a new post, "This isn't about publicity, it's about humanity." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the growing collection of artwork, Michael sat down with Charlotte Green, a journalist working on an in-depth piece about the transformation of the neighborhood. "People keep asking what's different now," he told her. "But the real question is, what's different about how they see?" The evening brought another surprise. William Nelson, a curator from New York, arrived with an unprecedented offer. He wanted to organize a major exhibition, featuring works by homeless artists from across the country, with Michael's story as the centerpiece. "Art has always been about giving voice to the voiceless," William explained. "It's time we listened." But perhaps the most touching moment came when Lucas Phillips, a 9-year-old boy, approached Michael with his piggy bank. "I saved this for something important," he said. "And your art is important." Michael knelt down to the boy's level and gently pushed the piggy bank back into his hands. Instead, he gave him a small sketch he'd done earlier that day. "Art isn't about money," he told Lucas. "It's about sharing how we see the world with others." As night fell over Los Angeles, the crowd finally began to thin. But the energy of transformation lingered in the air. Sophia Turner, a city council member who had witnessed the day's events, summed it up perfectly. "We didn't just discover an artist today. We discovered our own capacity for change. Michael's final painting of the day captured this sentiment perfectly. It showed a city at twilight, its windows lit from within, each light representing a story, a dream, a human being waiting to be seen. In the foreground, a single figure stood with a paintbrush, not painting the city as it was, but as it could be. 1 month after Natalie Portman's chance encounter with Michael Turner, the corner of Beverly Hills that had once been just another spot where a homeless artist sat had transformed into something extraordinary. The story that had captured hearts across Los Angeles was about to reach its most powerful chapter. Alexander Hall, the architect who had offered his empty building in the Arts District, stood proudly beside Michael as they cut the ribbon to the Turner Gallery, a space dedicated not just to homeless artists, but to breaking down the barriers between art, society, and social justice. The building's facade featured a stunning mural created by Michael himself, depicting hands of different colors intertwined with paintbrushes, tools, and pens. "This isn't my gallery," Michael insisted during the opening ceremony. "This belongs to every artist who's ever felt invisible." His words resonated with Emma Anderson, another formerly homeless artist whose sculptures now stood proudly in the gallery's entrance hall. Natalie Portman, who had returned for the opening, watched from the crowd with tears in her eyes. Her simple act of stopping to look at Michael's art had sparked a movement that exceeded everyone's expectations, but she refused to take credit. "All I did was see what was already there," she told Oliver Mitchell, a reporter covering the event. The real change came from the community's response. The gallery's first exhibition, titled Unseen, featured works from 28 homeless artists from across the city. Benjamin Carter, an art critic known for his harsh reviews, found himself speechless before a series of photographs taken by James Green, a former war photographer who had ended up on the streets after battling PTSD. "This isn't charity art," Benjamin wrote in his review. "This is raw, powerful truth-telling that forces us to confront our own prejudices and preconceptions." The impact extended far beyond the art world. Charlotte Phillips, a city council member, had proposed and successfully passed a new initiative providing art supplies and basic materials to homeless artists across Los Angeles. "Creativity shouldn't be a privilege," she declared at the council meeting. Sophia Wright, who had been documenting the transformation since day one, had completed her documentary, The Art of Seeing. The film didn't just tell Michael's story. It explored how art could bridge the gaps between communities and challenge social hierarchies. William Young, a former investment banker turned philanthropist, had established a foundation providing grants to homeless artists. "What Michael taught us," he explained during the gallery opening, "is that talent doesn't discriminate based on housing status." The gallery space itself had become more than just a place to display art. The basement had been converted into studio, spaces where artists could work, and the second floor housed classrooms where free art classes were offered to anyone who wanted to learn. Lucas Nelson, a retired art teacher, volunteered his time teaching basic techniques to eager students of all ages and backgrounds. Harper Turner, a homeless teenager who had been creating digital art on a borrowed phone, found herself with access to proper equipment and mentorship through the gallery's programs. "For the first time," she said, "someone saw me as an artist first, not just as a homeless person." Isabella Baker, who owned several high-end galleries across the city, had initially dismissed the project as naive idealism. But after visiting the gallery and seeing the quality of work being produced, she had become one of its strongest advocates. "This is reshaping how we think about art and artists," she admitted. The transformation wasn't limited to the art world. Noah Clark, a local business owner who had once called the police on homeless people near his store, now hosted weekly art workshops in his cafe. "I learned that the solution isn't to push people away," he reflected, "but to create spaces where everyone feels welcome." Michael's own work had evolved too. His latest series, Bridges, explored the connections forming between different parts of society. Liam Mitchell, an art professor at UCLA, described it as a masterclass in human connection, rendered in paint and passion. But perhaps the most powerful testament to the gallery's impact came from Evelyn Sanchez, a former teacher who had been living in her car while battling cancer. Through the gallery's programs, she had rediscovered her love of painting and found a community that supported her journey back to stability. "Art saved my life twice," she told the crowd during the opening. "Once, when it gave me a reason to keep going, and again when it showed me I wasn't alone." The gallery's impact rippled through the city in unexpected ways. Mia Roberts, a real estate developer, had begun incorporating studio spaces and public art installations into her new projects, with a percentage reserved for homeless artists. "It's not just about housing anymore," she explained. "It's about creating communities where creativity and dignity can thrive." Olivia Hall, a social worker specializing in homeless youth, reported a significant increase in engagement when art programs were introduced to her outreach efforts. "Art opens doors that statistics and surveys can't," she observed. "It creates connection." The success of the Turner Gallery inspired similar initiatives across the country. Henry Anderson, a businessman from New York, visited Los Angeles specifically to study the model, hoping to replicate it in other cities. "What's happening here isn't just about art," he noted. "It's about recognizing human potential in all its forms." As the opening day drew to a close, Michael stood before his latest work, a massive canvas that dominated the gallery's main wall. The painting showed a city at dawn, its buildings interconnected by streams of light that, upon closer inspection, were made up of tiny human figures reaching toward each other. Amelia Scott, an art therapist who had begun working with homeless artists through the gallery's programs, stood studying the painting. "This is what healing looks like," she said softly. "Not just for individuals, but for an entire community." The gallery had become more than just a space for art. It was a testament to what could happen when society chose to see beyond labels and circumstances. Emma Green, a homeless woman who had been creating intricate origami art from discarded papers, now taught workshops to corporate teams about creativity and resilience. Even James Phillips, the skeptical business owner who had initially complained about the crowds, had become a regular visitor to the gallery. "I was wrong," he admitted to Michael. "This place isn't disrupting the community, it's building one." As night fell on, the opening day, Michael gathered everyone in the main hall, surrounded by art that represented countless stories of struggle, hope, and resilience. He shared his vision for the future. "This gallery isn't the end of our journey," he said. "It's just the beginning." Lucas Carter, a young filmmaker, captured the moment when Michael unveiled his plans for a mobile art studio, a converted bus that would travel to different homeless communities, bringing supplies, teachers, and hope to those who couldn't come to the gallery. The evening ended with an impromptu art session where gallery visitors, artists, and community members created a collaborative mural together. Charlotte Young, watching her daughter add her own small contribution to the piece, summed up the sentiment perfectly. "Art doesn't just imitate life. Sometimes it shows us how to live it better." As the last visitors left the gallery, Michael stood in the quiet space, surrounded by the physical manifestation of what had started with a simple act of recognition. On the wall nearby hung the original painting that had caught Natalie Portman's eye, a reminder that change often begins with a single moment of genuine human connection. "Tell me," asked Alexander Mitchell, the last reporter remaining, "what's next?" Michael smiled, picking up his paintbrush. "We keep creating," he said. "We keep seeing each other. We keep building bridges, because art isn't just about what we make. It's about who we become when we dare to see the beauty in everything and everyone.